And so now instead of handing it off to a solar installer and, them making 10 grand, I say, hey, roofers, you do it and you can make about 8.5 grand. The idea of the Solvari all-in-one solar panels, we take the equivalent of those 450 parts and we put them onto the solar panel itself. So we're factory assembling the solar array on a module level or a PV solar panel level. So you just bring it to the roof, screw them down and plug them together. You can get a whole system done in an hour. You don't have to know anything about solar because we all did it. We did it at the factory. But in general, solar installers are paying anywhere between 50 cents to $1 a watt. So on a 10 kilowatt system, which is a little bit larger than typical, that would be $10,000. If you're a roofer and you're going back to your, like, hey, we installed, 5 years ago, we installed a new roof, or maybe 15 years ago. And they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to wait for a new roof. Just say, hey, I tell you what, we'll do solar now and we'll underwrite a guarantee that we'll pull the solar off and put it back on. It's going to take your guys 2 hours.
Welcome to the Roofing and Home Services Industry Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me. He is the founder of Solvari Solar. He's shaking up things in the solar industry. Samuel, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
And Samuel, so how did you first get into solar? If you want to take us back and tell us your story.
Yeah. So all the way back to high school, this was during the Al Gore years, and the alarm bells going off with climate scientists, really highlighting the rise of CO2 emissions being collected in our atmosphere. It became super clear, even to a high schooler, that we needed to start addressing it and doing something about it. And at my high school, I started an environmentalist club where we started the first recycling program at the school. And so it started early on. And then I was looking at what are my skill sets and how can I have the largest impact, renewable energy, so that we can help stem the tide of CO2 emissions. And, I'm very creative, really good at math. I'm a problem solver. I'm focused. And so I looked at the technology side instead of the policy side, and then decided to go to engineering to kind of put those skill sets to work on creative problem solving to help us on the technology side. Yeah. So from there, I was able to get an internship with the solar company, which was the largest solar company in the country at the time in the San Francisco Bay Area, called Powerlight. And since then, I've never looked back.
So you come from an engineering side with an engineering degree. How did that transition into owning a business and now owning Solvari and growing this business? Can you walk us a little bit through that journey?
Yeah, sure. So I was always interested in the startup environment where things move really quickly. You can get a lot done, and you also wear many hats. And so, working at startups, I was a senior salesperson for 6 months. I did quality. I was a quality manager. I did operations, shipping and receiving, as well as all my product development and testing, certification, validation testing, just everything in the business, you get to be a part of and grow that skill set. So it was a fantastic career. I spent 23 years in startups. And with this, Solvari is actually my second. The first one was a successful engineering firm that I grew from myself to a 7-person engineering firm. So a lot of experience doing it. I love doing it. I love building companies. I've seen successful builds. I've seen unsuccessful builds, really bringing all of that knowledge of business, but also knowledge of solar products to bear to launch this Solvari solution. Yeah, I believe is going to have significant impacts in residential solar.
Talk to us about the actual system, because when we think of residential solar, the layman homeowner, even me, myself, I think about the solar panels on the roof. My knowledge goes to the extent of like the Tesla Powerwalls. So how is this system different, and how does that help homeowners, save energy or save money? And then how does that bring an environmental impact? Because it looks like you're a pretty big environmental proponent. So let's talk about that.
Okay. So first off, on the technology side, what is a solar system? So a photovoltaic solar array is constructed of solar panels that are mounted on a roof surface for residential, typically. And that solar panel generates DC electricity. It's kind of like a battery generates DC. And the home uses AC. So the first thing you need to do is convert that energy from the solar panel into AC so that your home can use the electricity. And then when you talk about a Tesla Powerwall, what you're doing there is you're coupling a battery for storage of that solar electricity so that it's coming from your roof. You can store that electricity. If you don't need it all now, you can store it for another time. And all of this is typically connected to the grid, where a home can get energy from the utility if they're not generating enough for themselves. You can also do completely off-grid, and that's been around for 20, 30 years in solar, where you run with the solar and the batteries a completely off-grid, non-connected system. But the vast majority are connected to the grid for all it basically lowers the cost of your system overall. So what Solvari is doing is we have innovated up on the roof. And so this is the solar panels and the racking, and we've actually moved the inverter up onto the roof as well to make the installation, overall system installation, a lot faster. And so typically, if you have a specialty contractor called a solar installer that knows all about the different parts and components and knows how to manipulate them properly to produce, if they're well trained and they're doing a good job, a high quality system. And so it starts off, they bring the solar panels up to the roof, and then they bring up another 450 or so components, and they put it all together up on the roof. So you can imagine your plumber coming to install a new hot water heater. And instead of getting a whole hot water heater that they just hook up, they get the burner, they get a bunch of screws, they get a tank, they get a bunch of valves that need to be installed, and it's like 100 parts out in the driveway that they put it together. Now, that wouldn't give you a sense of confidence that you're getting a good hot water heater, but that's exactly what we're doing with solar, right? And so, I was looking at this process and all of the complexity, and the reason why we have these specialty contractor solar installers is because it's so complex and specialized skills. And I was like, how can we do it better? And the idea of the Solvari all-in-one solar panels, we take the equivalent of those 450 parts and we put them onto the solar panel itself. So we're factory assembling the solar array on a module level or a PV solar panel level. So you just bring it to the roof, screw them down and plug them together. You can get a whole system done in an hour. You don't have to know anything about solar because we all did it. We did it at the factory. So that's what we have done at Solvari. And the repercussions, we can talk about the repercussions of that later in the podcast. But in general, once you've taken the mystery and the skills out of the solar, you no longer have to rely on the traditional solar installer to get the work done. We can actually go back to traditional trades because their skill set is absolutely fine to be able to install a Solvari system. In fact, most of what they're doing is more difficult than a Solvari system. So that's what we're targeting. That's why we're on the call with you with the, roofers and marketing to those folks. Is this is the product for them? Okay, so I think the other question you had was cost savings to the homeowner. So what solar does is it offsets the usage that a homeowner would normally be paying a utility, right? So if you're getting energy from your solar, then you don't need to pay the utility for that, for the offset of that energy. There's the cost of that energy depends on your utility, depends on what state you're in. It could be, 7 cents a kilowatt hour, all the way up to 35, 40 cents a kilowatt hour, depending on the state that you're in. And so the value proposition can change. And the payback period can be anywhere from 5 years to 15 years, depending on how expensive your solar is, and then how expensive your energy costs typically are from the utility. So what we're doing is we're looking to significantly reduce the cost of solar to the homeowner through going through traditional trades like roofers. And by doing that, reducing the cost of the homeowner and reducing the payback period. So we're hoping to target more like 3 to 10 years instead of the 5 to 15. Okay, on the ecological side, Jules, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. What I can tell you is that with the Solvari system, because we have optimized the material usage and we've offset aluminum, because usually there's an aluminum frame around a solar panel and there's aluminum racking. That aluminum is actually a high greenhouse gas emitting product when you go to produce it and extrude it. And so we're eliminating 13 pounds of aluminum with 2 pounds of polymer. So we're being much more efficient in just material usage, but also polymer is actually very low greenhouse gas emission products. So what we've done by installing a Solvari system, if you have a 25-year life solar system on your roof, you get an extra year of greenhouse gas emission savings because you use Solvari as opposed to traditional technology. And that ends up being, I think it's like 4,000 pounds of CO2 that you're saving.
Wow.
So pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the money side of things, since we're going to be showing this to roofing professionals. If I can be straight up about that, how can roofers make money by installing solar, and specifically Solvari Solar? How does that economically help them if they were to offer that as a service?
Yep. So we've done a lot of work here. We've had quite a few roofing partners. So the numbers I'm throwing out are fairly vetted, but it will be a different, based off the sales price and the location that you are. However, in general, the way it works today is most roofers will give a referral to a solar contractor, right? So they're already in the house, they're selling the roofing, and they're like, "Hey, do you want solar?" And then they get maybe $500 to $1,000 to do a referral out to a solar installer. That solar installer is going to turn around and make 10 grand on that install, right? So now what we're doing with Solvari is we're saying, "Hey, don't hand off that sale. Do it yourself. It'll take your roofing crew an hour." And they can even do it at the end of if they are doing a new roof, at the end of the new roof, just put on Solvari, takes another hour. You can call our certified electricians network who will come out at a fixed cost and finish the electrical. And so now instead of handing it off to a solar installer and, them making 10 grand, I say, "Hey, roofers, you do it and you can make about 8.5 grand for an hour's worth of work up on the roof." So that's pretty significant. And not only can the roofers make more money, but you're going to be more competitive than a solar contractor because they pay a lot of money on customer acquisition costs. I mean, right? The referral that you gave them was $1,000. So right off the bat for that referral, you're saving $1,000 over what the solar installer can provide. But in general, solar installers are paying anywhere between 50 cents to $1 a watt. So on a 10 kilowatt system, which is a little bit larger than typical, that would be $10,000, right? So if the solar system costs $30,000, a 10 kilowatt system, $30,000, $10,000 went to customer acquisition costs. You guys are coming in as roofers. You're already at the home. You're already selling roofing. You can sell solar for almost nothing, and you're already coming in a third of the cost of a traditional solar installer. And so you guys can make a lot of money and be super competitive compared to a solar installer. And so and when I looked at it and I'm like, "Hey, how can we reduce that cost of solar to really make it more cost effective for everyone?" I was like, we have got to go back to traditional trades. We have to go back to the repeat business model instead of the one and done model of a solar installer is like, "Hey, anything to get the sale, get it up on the roof and be gone." It's the repeat business customers. It's like, "Hey, I was at your, I remodeled this roof. You guys had a leak. I came in, did a great job. Did you like the work? Yes. Great. Do you want solar? You guys have a list of the last 40 years. Some of these roofing businesses have been around for 40 years. Go back to that list and say, "Hey, we have solar now." And all of that reduces the customer acquisition cost. You guys are trusted advisors to a lot of these homeowners, and they want to come back to you to get solar. They don't want to go to someone they don't know, right? And Solvari empowers you guys to do that. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, typical profit margin on a roof, just a regular conventional shingle roof, is between 25 to about 35%, which equates to between, on the low end, 4 to about 6 or 7 grand. Now you're basically tripling that profit margin by just adding an extra hour of work. That's incredible, really.
It's incredible.
And even like the fact that the system itself will be less expensive for the homeowner, given that they're using the same contractor to do the work instead of going out and finding one of these large nationwide installers that do a ton of outreach, door knocking. So obviously that adds on the cost to the homeowner. So
Right.
that's like really a no brainer. I want to ask you about the current state of the solar industry, and if
Yeah.
you want to tread lightly, sure do. But I want to like this is a fact. Everybody knows it now. There was a bill that was passed very recently that will take away the solar credits that homeowners used to get in a lot of states. I know Florida has it. One of my clients in Colorado was just talking about it with me the other day. So, how does that impact the solar industry, given that a lot of these incentives are going to not stay come next year?
Yeah. So there's the way residential solar is paid for by homeowners. There's three main avenues. One is you just pay for it in cash, right? Not most of us can't do that, but some can. The second is you just get a loan, right? So this is just like a personal loan or a home improvement loan, and that's the second way to pay for it. The third is through leasing, which means you don't really own the solar system yourself. Someone else does. And if they're a company, they get the tax credits and they can depreciate the asset because they're a business, right? So there's kind of like a double advantage for them. And traditionally, the homeowner, if they were to get a loan or purchase it themselves, would be able to get the 30% federal tax credit. And that's a federal tax credit. So what you're talking about is like the states. Yeah. California used to have rebate programs, and Florida used to have rebate programs. There's still places that do. I mean, here in Austin, there's a $2,500 rebate program. But the federal tax credit is what the big, beautiful bill that just passed, they are eliminating the 30% federal tax credit. And so what does that mean from the homeowner? So it means your solar is going to be more expensive, right? Just period. And what is it going to do to the industry? You are going to see the industry is going to slow down for sure. It's going to have to adapt. And part of the adaptation is going to be how can we reduce costs? So what's going to happen is the material costs, that's just nothing you can do about that. The material costs have been on a historic low because of China's oversupply of solar panels. So, and China has just released a policy to actually decrease production of solar panels to bring the prices back to normal because they've been losing money. So that's gonna go away, and that's gonna hurt the industry. So that's kind of like a double whammy. So how can the solar industry isn't going to go away, but how can it still be effective, and how can it still move forward? And it's going to be technology based. There has to be a technology turn that reduces what we call the soft costs of a system, right? You have the fixed cost of materials and then the soft costs, everything that it takes to handle these complex systems, the overhead and organization to manage all these components and get them to the roof, and the specialty skills that you have to train, that you got to pay for. Something has to change on the technology side. So this is the same analysis that I actually went through about 3 or 4 years ago when I was like, hey, what happens when our tax credits go away? How do we solve this problem? We had seen cost of residential solar be flat for 10 years and nothing had changed. And that was, okay, Solvari was in its inception was to drive towards the day that the tax credits go away. And so we are the technology solution that today, installing Solvari through a roofer, you can beat the cost savings that a homeowner would have done with traditional solar with the tax credits. So
Wow.
we're looking at the world as nothing has changed. Any other technology is like, oh my entire business is at risk. I don't know who's going to buy my product. It all just got very expensive. So where I'm sitting, I'm like, I'm fine. I mean, I don't think it's great for the solar industry as a whole. Like, I'm also not, I don't think that a indefinite tax break for solar indefinitely into the future is a solution for our country either. so as a company, I think we're going to be fine. As an industry, oh, by the way, there are still the 30% tax credit if you have a leased system. So what they did is they basically gave a gimme if you're a big company, but if you're just Joe Schmo, you're just a middle class person trying to save money on your utility bills, they're like, no, we're giving you nothing. So that's unfortunate, and I feel like corporations are doing fine. Good for them. That's awesome. Taking that advantage away from individuals, I think, is unfortunate. So, politically, that can change. Anything can be fixed, and I think that I'm not the only one that notices this. And when people are like, "Well, wait a second, how come someone else can own the solar on my roof and get a 30% tax credit, but I can't buy it myself and get a 30% tax credit?" I mean, once that gets out, there's an opportunity to change the laws. Obviously, there's the Democratic Party who put all this in place. Who knows a year and a half from now who's in charge of the House and the Senate? Then there's another 2 years after that when the president changes. So, is this permanent? Of course not. Is this something we have to get through, and will we get through? We will. I have to say one thing that is unfortunate from a broad industry perspective that also I find a little confounding is that the tariff and the tax credit policies that have put in place, both under Trump and Biden, were instrumental in bringing back manufacturing of solar technology and manufacturing solar panels. Us as well, like we manufacturing this, and we're targeting to manufacture this in Austin. And those tax credits and incentives and tariffs were all helping that happen. And we've built amazing new factories to build out domestic module supply, and those are seriously at risk. I'd be shocked if 50% of them are around 2 years from now. So, and that just hits our industry. I mean, who cares? I don't, we want jobs. We want manufacturing. These are high tech jobs. We trained the Chinese on how to make a solar panel, and then they took it from there and they've mass produced it. They've made incredible strides in manufacturing technologies. And now they're training us again on how to do it. And then we're saying, okay, no thanks. So, from both the policy and economics, we're trying to bring back manufacturing. It's puzzling. It's a puzzling decision. I mean, there was already a ramp down for the tax incentives and all this stuff. It was already built into it, a ramp down. I can't tell you. It doesn't make much sense to me, but it's
I,
coming.
I get it. I get it. The current the current market, the demand, from what I'm hearing from some of my solar clients, is that there is a unnatural demand for solar right now. The phones are ringing off the hook,
Yeah.
and a couple of my clients were like, "Hey, you have to shut down my SEO campaign because I'm already getting so many leads, and we're not able to keep up with this demand because people are aware that the tax credits are ending by the
Yeah.
end of this year, and they have to get their solar in." So I'm like, it's good for the time being, but they're also saying that next year, when this gold rush of solar slows down, then we're going to be in trouble, and we're going to have to think about other ways to sustain our business.
Yeah.
What do you say to
Absolutely.
those people that, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, what I say is you have to look for a technology solution to stay competitive. And hey, our new product is going to be available January 1st. So, I mean, give us a call. We're here to help. I'm not sure how else you're going to be able to do it and be competitive. So, we're here to help both solar installers because they'll be able to get multiple jobs done in a day. With Solvari, if you can do it in an hour instead of all day long, in high quality, we can keep them in business. And that's what we're here. We're here to help. So give us a call and we'll help keep you in business.
Awesome, awesome. And if you compare Solvari to other solar systems that are in the market, what about power generation itself? Like, how much capacity is it able to handle? Is there a limit to how much power you can produce with the systems because it's all built into one?
Yeah. So we have the same roof constraint as any other technology. So our efficiency is best in class. We're over 22% efficient, and we keep our module size easy to handle. So it's a 410 watt panel instead of a 450 or 500, which are larger panels. So just need one or two more of ours, maybe than some of the other commercially available, but it'll install so much faster. And so it doesn't really matter how many panels. Is the same square footage on the roof, right? So we are, your power capacity is based off of your roof availability. That's all it comes down to. Yeah.
Cool. And one last question I have for you before we kind of wrap this up is, so I am a roofer and I'm looking to expand my business. I am already probably saturated at this point with the market size that I have. I may do shingle roofs. Maybe I have some metal roofing guys because metal takes a lot of skill, and like you cut one piece wrong, being you're costing thousands of dollars because it's very expensive product to put on the roof. So now I'm looking at solar. How do I start that journey? What would be my first step? What would be my second? What would be my last? If you can walk me through it, because I think some of these roofers might get value out of that.
Yeah. So let's talk about if you do traditional solar, so not Solvari. I can tell you a lot of roofers have looked into it and they see the synergy and they're like, hey, I'm already up on the roof. I own the roof. I just installed a beautiful roof. Why would I hand it over to someone else who's going to mess it up? Right. I want to have full ownership. And then they start looking into what it actually takes. So they have so much they need to learn. They need to learn the products. They need to learn how to install the products. They need to learn code compliance. There's a whole section of National Electric Code, section 690 for solar. Like, well, I'm a roofer, dude. I don't do electricity, right? So, and then there's the specialty trucks. They're going to have the extra parts and components that you need. And then usually what they end up doing is hiring people specifically to do the solar. And so it's like a different division now inside your own organization. And he's like, wait a second. When it's all said and done, they're looking at like a $500,000 investment for a money revenue that's a dream and hopeful thinking. And it might work. And some companies have done it and they've dedicated, and it took them a few years and they just kept pouring money at it and they finally got something out of it. Fantastic. Tough haul, high risk. So what Solvari is doing is say, hey, don't do that $500,000 investment. You can learn Solvari in 20 minutes watching some videos. And, I'm not kidding. It's harder to build an IKEA dresser than it is to install a Solvari system. So, you got all these pages and all these instructions, like our instructions are lifted to the roof, screw it down and plug them together. Okay. It's really simple. All the roofing stuff is more complicated. So, that's your install crew. But the other part of this was you have to have you still have to sell it, right? So how do you sell it? And so Solvari is putting together a complete sales process, financing process that's all one-stop shop, very intuitive. If you're a solar installer today, the sales process can be quite cumbersome and complicated because every time how many panels do you need? First question anyone asks, how many solar panels do I need for my house? Okay. Well, it depends on your roof surface and the different technologies. And when you move things around and different size arrays, changes the cost of the system. Solvari, it doesn't. Each panel costs the same. The installation time costs the same, no matter how many roof faces and how complicated the array is. Solvari is always the same. And you don't have to go and have someone specific on your team to go buy parts from your distributor, right? Distributor have these parts today and they won't have them tomorrow. And their prices are always changing and their products are always changing. And you have to make sure they all match. And you have to have someone who's trained and specialized in that. And then you have to have an engineer to do the drawings and all this stuff. And Solvari simplifies all of that. You don't need any of those positions that are typically required. So we're eliminating the investment, we're eliminating the risk of the investment, and we're saying, hey, just be opportunistic. Our sales process is going to be very straightforward, not all 100 options, and it's just you're always selling Solvari. All your components and products are coming from one company, one warranty, 25-year bumper to bumper. You know, you don't have to worry. We make sure that the inverter matches the solar panel. You don't have to do any engineering. We take care of the engineering. We factory built this system for you. And so now I'm looking at that as a business owner. If I were a roofer, I'm like, well, wait a second. This changes my calculus of what my investment and risks are. And so now Solvari gives you the avenue to be opportunistic and without the investment to go solar. And then having our CSE certified Solvari electricians can come and finish for a fixed price the electrical. That is to say, hey, I don't have. You can use your own electrician. I don't care. But if you don't have one, you can pull one from our list. And if we don't have one in your area, we'll help you find one, and we'll help certify that electrician. So you can see, we want you to keep doing roofing, right? And for an extra hour, and maybe another extra hour for sales, you can sell solar too. And that's the future. That's how, who cares what's going on with the tax credits? You're going to be able to deliver solar at a crazy low cost price.
Yeah, I mean it's with everything really. When I started my business, I used to do primarily pay per click, and then we pivoted to offering like organic SEO. Now we're obviously doing AI SEO, we do social media, we do video production even. So I mean customers really looking for the all-in-one solution because they've already built a relationship with you, they have trust, you have credibility. They don't want to shop around 5 different places,
Right.
especially when they know their roof is getting put up anyway. So, 100% makes sense. No brainer idea. This is incredible. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, go
Actually,
ahead,
I have
Samuel. Yeah,
one. I
I
have
thought.
one other advantage that's interesting for the Solvari is that as a roofing perspective, traditionally you look at solar and you're like, hey, we'll just put it on when we do a new roof, because it's a lot of work to get it up there. And then it's a lot of work to bring it down. It's very expensive to pull it back down. You're talking, it can be over $10,000 to pull a system down and put it back up. Solvari takes an hour to put up and an hour to put down and an hour to put back up, right? And so if you're a roofer and you're going back to your, like, hey, we installed, 5 years ago, we installed a new roof, or maybe 15 years ago. And they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to wait for a new roof. Just say, hey, I tell you what, we'll do solar now, and we'll underwrite a guarantee that we'll pull the solar off and put it back on. It's going to take your guys 2 hours. And if they're local to your business, whatever, you do it after the end of another job. And that guarantee that you could also charge for, it's up to your business model. But that eliminates the need to go solar with a new roof. Now you can really go after your entire contact list, all these people that love the work you did, and get them to go solar now so they can start saving now and not push it off 5-10 years until they need a new roof. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's two real value propositions here. One, the fact that it's kind of like a plug and play, detach and reset real fast, put it up real fast. Like you said, if it's really an hour, that's incredible. And then then there's the cost savings attribute for the customer. So they don't have to spend money for another 5 or 10 years on their power bill and then get a new roof and then get solar. That's, yeah, I guess, you can't really, there's no other use case for it.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right. Well, thank you, Samuel, for coming on. It's been swell. This has been wonderful. I learned a lot about the solar industry and solar panels in general. For those of you guys watching, anyone in the roofing industry, I will put out the information for Solvari and for Samuel in the description. Samuel, if you want to just spit out the information also, like where they can find you online, where they can reach out to you if they want to make an inquiry, that'd be great.
Yep. So our website is solvarisolar.com, Solvari solar.com. And there's tons of ways to get a hold of us out there. You can join our list and follow how we're progressing. You can do info@solvarisolar.com and ask any inquiries, and you can even place an order for panels. So however you want to do it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll see you in another episode. Otherwise, I wish you the best of luck. And again, thanks for coming and thanks for your time.
Great. Thank you very much.